Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to What Juices You podcast. My name is Brady Wilson. I'm your host today, and I am so excited to introduce you to Mr. Todd Rutkowski. And Todd is in charge of human resources at a great organization in Calgary called EPIC. We'll get into that a little bit more, and has his own organization. I want him to introduce the name of that. Todd, welcome to the podcast.
Yeah, great to be here, Brady. Looking forward to it.
Yeah. And I'm going to ask you the question I ask everybody. What juices you? So what is it that you are wired to do? When you wake up in the morning, you do not have to fuel it. It fuels you. But I want to ask it in a very specific context. And for you, Todd, in a world of division and fragmentation, and stepping into the role that life has called you to step into, what is it that juices you? How do you sustain your energy in the midst of that, both at EPIC and then in your organization? And then you've had an interesting trip to the Middle East that I hope that we can dig into that as well, because talk about fragmentation and division writ large. So, and you can go wherever you want today. I know that there's going to be massive value for our listeners, and I look forward to where our conversation will take. But talk about what juices you in a world that has become divided along lines of politics and religion and race and gender and age and on and on and on.
Yeah.
Tell me, how do you sustain your energy, and what is it that fuels you in such a world?
You know, kind of in a strange way, in this sort of, as you mentioned, polarized reality we live in, which seems even bigger than it was for me as a child or as a teenager, even as a young man. It seems like the world has gotten more polarized. The fascinating part for me is I've become more intrigued by that, by the binary thinking, and have found my role, if you would, or my longing, what energizes me, what juices me really is in navigating the messy middle. And so I see myself as that, as a navigator, trying to be a both and person, recognizing there's usually truth in both sides. And if we can find that common ground, we have a place in which we can dialogue, or we can at least have a conversation. Otherwise, it's just, shooting each other from the polar ends. And, if I was to define it, if I was to say what word, it would be a peacemaker. So, there's this idea of peacekeeping and peacemaking. Yeah. Peacemaking to me is you go through the conflict. You don't deny it. You don't push it down. You don't ignore it. You walk into it. And so in my role here as the Chief Culture Officer at the EPIC Group of companies, we have about 7 companies. In my role, it's overseeing the HR team, the safety team, and being part of the executive team is really to create a culture where people feel heard and seen and valued, and where the business, is profitable, but is also aware of the needs of the employees. And so I've tried to really hold that tension. And so I end up in a lot of conflicts. I end up in the middle of a lot of challenges where both the manager and the employee, or two managers, can't find the messy middle. And so I help try to navigate that. Try to do that through the development of soft skills, through modeling that, through not being overwhelmed by the anxiety, recognizing anxiety is to be human, is to be anxious, and how to de-escalate that anxiety and find a way through for people. So I've been doing that for about 14 years here.
Wow. Yeah.
Setting culture, and then also trying to help find people's middle ground, if you would, or help them find what energizes them. And that can help bring them out of the binary thinking, out of the polarization, because they realize what they're after is not very far away from what the other person's after, or they're just taking a different route to get there.
Let's step into that, because I know there's a bigger story here. You've had a trip to the Middle East. We're going to go there. You've written a book about the messy middle, and I want you to talk about that as well. But before we do, you're in in an industry. I mean, roofing, siding, windows. It's very pragmatic, and speed and efficiency and productivity massive.
Yeah. Yeah.
you're kind of tethered to the weather, if you will, in
Fair.
that if there's a massive hailstorm, you have business lined up. And if I remember correctly, a couple of years ago, we had in Calgary a phenomenal hailstorm that created 3 years of work for you. Is that
Yeah,
it?
yeah. August 5th, 2024,
Mm,
we had a $3 billion hailstorm here in the city. We'll be, along with every other exteriors company, we'll be working for at least 3 years trying to clean it up. And then we got another hailstorm, not very big, but one just 2 weeks ago. So
got
it
it.
doesn't seem to end here. Yes, we are weather related in that regard, but we also have other companies that work. We have a restoration company that works with internal floods and
Yes.
mold and fire, and so they're not as much dependent on the weather. They're more dependent on human error, which there's a lot of people that leave their bathtub running and forget to turn off the sink
Yeah.
and have their dishwasher or hot water tank blow a gasket. So
Totally.
we kind of are the disaster specialists, if you would,
Yeah.
in among our 7 companies.
Yeah.
Um,
So you've got a workforce that is needing to crank out very, very tangible outcomes,
mhm.
and you've got leaders who are very interested in those outcomes being delivered. And
Yeah,
you're kind of in the middle. Can we humanize this
yeah,
experience? Can we treat our people right
yeah,
and still get the results that are so important to all of us? So tell me a little bit
yeah,
about, again, sustaining it. That's a division. That's one of those areas where we can easily
yeah,
get fragmented and where people can feel that they are simply a cog, that they are,
yeah,
it's a very transactional,
yeah.
utilitarian approach. That's, of course, not what you want. So how is it that you shine and do your piece in the middle of all of that?
It's a great question, and certainly one that we have and continue to wrestle with. We have, a number of divisions. So we have our sales division, we have our production division, we have our, our safety team, our HR team, our accounting team. We have
Yeah.
multiple field workers, and so there's a variety of types of lifestyle, if you would. And then in the middle of that, we've got about 40 managers that primarily is my role to keep their accountability, keep their feet to the fire, keep them living within the cultural norms,
Yeah.
because there is a temptation, because employment standards doesn't require us to go through a process with field workers in the world of construction that says, hey, you need to be warned that these activities or behaviors or the way you're handling self isn't acceptable, and go through that normal process of progressive discipline. In the world of construction, you can just let a person go.
I see. Yeah.
And we don't do that. We stick to our cultural norms, not our legal norms. So we go beyond and above. And so that creates a little bit more trust. I would say within our field, we probably hit 7 out of 10. So for every 10 employees, probably 3 of them don't find it a great experience, but
Right.
7 do.
Yeah.
Can we get 10 out of 10? I would love to. But I know we have to move incrementally because our managers are also growing and learning, coming out of the world of construction where they're not used to being empathetic necessarily or being invited to be from upper management. And so we're encouraging a different posture, and it takes a bit for some to actually build the soft skills to do that.
Yeah. My sense, Todd, is Epic has gone a long way bending in a good way to create opportunities for people who have been disadvantaged and come from different parts of the world where getting a leg up in Canada, in
Yeah,
Calgary, at Epic means the absolute world to them. And I think you've
yeah,
got some stories around that that are
yeah.
pretty exemplary. Is that true?
Well, we certainly have. I mean, when I think of that part of our business, we probably have people from 50 different countries. We've taken in 16 to 20 Ukrainians that have come to flee war.
Yeah.
Many of them don't speak English, so that becomes part of the challenge. But
Yeah.
we've brought them in. In our restoration company, we have a division that's a cleaning company, and so we're able to hire a number of immigrants that are trying to land their first job, in that world of condo cleaning, often they'll pay minimum wage. They won't pay benefits. They're almost put into a, hey, you do what I ask and you work as long as I want, or I'll send you home. And so it's a little bit of Canadian slavery
Yeah,
going on right under our noses. And
that's
so we've
amazing.
tried to posture where they get raises, they're not on minimum wage, they get benefits. The danger is everybody then tells their friends, and they all want to work for us.
Sure. Yeah.
And so that's a good problem to have. But
Mm-hmm.
a lot of I have one of our guys who's been with us probably 11 years, maybe even 12. He's an architect in the Philippines, and he said to me, Todd, I can make more money in Canada as a janitor working for you guys than I can as an architect in the Philippines. So it's not that we pay extravagantly; it's that our wages are just that much different and that much
Yeah.
better.
Yeah.
Compared to some of the places people are coming from. So we've been able to do that, and we've been able to value that, and we love that. We love to be able to give people an opportunity to land in Canada in a way that maybe they couldn't prior, or weren't given that opportunity. So we'll take chances with people. Right now we're in the process with a fella that nobody wants to take a chance on, and yet he's done incredible things internationally, but nothing in Canada, so they're nervous. Can he do something with Canadians in terms of the world of sales? And I think we're going to take a risk on him, because that's a little bit of our bent, is to move in that direction and give people maybe an opportunity that might not get otherwise. And our interview process is that way. It's designed around who are you as a person? Will you fit the culture? Will you fit the culture? Not just, are you skilled enough to do the job?
Right.
That's one component, but that's not the only component, and not even the main component. So it's a little bit of how we've tried to move forward in this. And of course, as you do, you end up with lots of cultural conflicts, communication gaps. And so then my role is to try to step in with the managers and try to support them and help them, and even be in meetings with them to help, soften the blow, or
Mm-hmm.
communicate with more clarity, ask better questions. And so I try to do both training and modeling. And within that, we developed what we call the Flywheel program,
Yep.
which is now we're into Flywheel 3.0. So we started in 2013. Kind of what are the skills that we need in the marketplace to succeed relationally,
Okay.
culturally, in a leadership role in this world. And so I started with sort of version 1, and now we're into what, 12 years later from 2013.
Yeah.
And I'm now into version 3, and really happy with what we've got. We've shrunk it down to 15 really important sessions, 5 on the subject of personal development, 5 on the topic of leadership development, and then
Yeah.
5 on the top of organizational development, how to build a
Mm.
team, how to grow a team. And so we found it quite effective, to the point now where we're taking it outside our business, and there's lots of requests for that, which I've begun to do under my new business, called Lodestar. And
Yeah.
the
Talk about
reason it,
Lodestar and tell me
yeah,
about the name, because when
yeah.
I first heard it, I was going, okay, where does that name come from? Tell us about that.
Yeah, so Lodestar is a star in the northern sky. It's the star that's the brightest. It's the guide. So when people were at sea or in boats, they looked for the Lodestar. They would follow the Lodestar. It was a navigating star. And so
Mm.
I see our job, and my job in the company called Lodestar, is to be a navigator, to be a guide, and in many ways to be a guide for those that are trying to live in the messy middle, because I
Mm.
think that's where life is best understood. And that maybe takes us back to the original question, how do you navigate the polarized society that we live in, whether you talk whatever topic, whether you talk politics, whether you talk religion, whether you talk sexuality, pick a topic. People are very polarized today.
Mhm.
And so what can move us into being able to hear each other in a new way, that we somehow have blocked each other out, and just to sort of demonize those who don't hold what we hold, the position we hold. And so that's been my journey of trying to find that truth in the middle, try to move people out of binary thinking. And so I had the opportunity recently to go on a trip. There was 22 of us invited.
Yeah.
Uh, to go to Israel and into the Gaza envelope. We were not allowed to get into Gaza, but we were within the envelope, which is within a 7-kilometer radius of Gaza. We did go to the West Bank as well. From a tourist point of view, when we pulled up to the Jordan River where Jesus baptized people and John baptized people, and people go there for just to see it or to be baptized. And we pulled up to that spot, and the tour guide with us said, we're the only bus in the parking lot today, and on a normal day there's 50 buses here.
Wow.
So as you can tell, tourism is gone.
Yep.
And of course, nobody was in there during the last months. We went in the end of May and literally got out 5 days before Israel attacked Iran. And, we probably would have been stuck there had we been 5 days later.
Yeah.
So we had an incredible privilege of getting in behind the scenes. So the team leader that took us as a CEO out of Toronto, he's a Jewish man himself. He's well connected to the political world in Canada and the political world in Israel. So we were meeting with the foreign ministry. We were meeting with the national defense. We met with the different departments that kind of had a role in what's going on. And each time they kind of gave us their view. Each evening we would have different speakers come and speak as we had a 5-course meal around a huge table in various restaurants. We had the former deputy mayor of Jerusalem speak to us. She was a brilliant communicator. We had several journalists. We had a Palestinian journalist who also works in Gaza in the West Bank who came and spoke with us. And we were also able to go to several of the sites where on October 7th, 2023, there were multiple attacks. So we went to the base, where the military base that had been attacked and where many of the women were taken as hostages. We went to the places where there was a number of families that lived together, and they were all, I think, kidnapped or killed. I can't remember the numbers of them. Anyways, we were looking at the tragedy of the October 7th massacre when people came over the wall or through the fence and attacked Israel. And what became apparent to me, because I went in as, again, someone who's pro-Israel, pro-Gaza. I'm pro both. I'm not. I don't see either of them as the devil. I see either of them having very evil aspects to their side, whether it's Hamas in Gaza or the far right government of Israel is, to me, has a dangerous mindset, and 70% of Israelis are not supportive of how their government is handling this role. And so it's a very difficult dynamic. So you have two groups that have good people in them, and then some evil ideology in both sides. So you tend to want to demonize Israel more so because they seem like the more power player. They seem to have more support, more sophistication. In Gaza, you see the devastation, but it's actually not that black and white.
So tell me about this for a second. What did you learn that surprised you? That one would say, well, this is a slam dunk assumption or conclusion. And having gone there, you came back, and maybe you left here and departed to Israel with not as much mess, thinking, okay, well, Gaza Strip is a lot of mess, but maybe you came back with a lot more of a messy middle. But perhaps in the messy middle, there might be more hope or a sense of more understanding of what matters most to each side. What surprised you, and how can you help us understand that?
Yeah, I definitely was surprised on many fronts. I think what matters most to each side was fascinating to really go, how do you do this? To Gaza and to the Gaza Strip and to the Palestinians there, what matters most is they want land, they want space, they want a place to live. And so what struck me is, and I did also speak with Palestinian PhD in what was her PhD, and it was in political science. And I spoke with her over lunch before I actually went, and she talked about how, her people, because she has many family members living in the Gaza Strip. She said, many of them plan to stay there and die there because they don't see the chance to be saved or rescued or moved out, but they're not willing to give up their land either. And she said they're pro-Hamas, not because they're for Hamas, but Hamas is the only one fighting for what's important to them, which is land. And so they don't like what Hamas does and how they lead and how they kill their own people, but they're the only ones fighting for their wants and needs.
Yes.
Is the perception. On the Israeli side, you've got a group of people who just watched 1,200 people killed or kidnapped, who their neighbor that they thought was a neighbor came over the fence, if you would, came over the wall and came in their homes, metaphorically, in some cases real, and kidnapped them and killed them. And so while the rest of the world is saying, Israel, stop what you're doing, stop it, they're like, we're in the middle of getting our people back. What do you mean, stop it? So they can't hear the rest of the world because they're going, the rest of the world doesn't realize we're traumatized and we still don't have our people back.
Right.
When we get our people back, we can have a different conversation, dead or alive. We know that of the 50-some remaining hostages, they believe only 20 are alive, but they want both the dead bodies and the living, and of course that isn't there yet. I think what the Israelis that I met, lovely people, I think lovely Palestinian people that I met. So we're not talking about most people being evil. They're caught in the middle of something else. And what Israel wants most, or what the Jewish people want most, because it's important to understand in Israel right now, 40% of Jerusalem is Palestinians. So keep that in mind. So when people think Jerusalem, they think Jewish people. It's not. There is Orthodox Jews, there is moderate Jews, but there's also 40% Palestinians.
Fascinating.
Arabs. So 20% Arabs in all of Israel. So there's this kind of misunderstanding in many ways of who we're dealing with and what we're dealing with. But what I hear the Jewish people saying is, we fear another Holocaust. We fear the rest of the world wants us out, and the mandate or charter for Hamas is to remove Israel or move Jewish people from the planet. They're not hiding that. They're not hiding their charter. So you've got Hamas who wants to wipe out Jewish people, and you've got Israel who says, we don't trust our neighbor. They came over the fence at us, and so how do we live? So this two-state solution has gone out the window from what I saw. So I kept thinking, two-state solution. Here's how we handle the messy middle. Well, how do you sleep when you know your neighbor might come over the fence and choke you in the middle of the night? Metaphorically again, and not. And so the Israelis have kind of thought, no, we can't see a two-state solution now. Hamas is saying, well, if we give up, you're going to kill us all. So can you give us some kind of way to, go hide in the world somewhere and not be seen? And then of course the fear is they'll re-rally and convene in a different form. The only thing that I saw that seemed hopeful as a way forward is this Abrahamic Accord. And if that moves forward, the idea is that, and in the UN now, as of just very recently, there's this movement to have Palestinian identified as a state, to Gaza as a state, is that Egypt, Saudi Arabia, potentially other Middle Eastern countries would begin to join Jordan this accord where they would give leadership to Gaza rather than Israel. So Israel pulls out, and they're responsible to other Arab nations who will say, hey, you can't do that. You can't cross that line. That seemed like a way to handle the messy middle. Israel's going to have to give up control and trust the Arab nations, and the Gazians and those living in the Gaza Strip are going to have to give up their desire to have all of the land in Israel to disappear. It's quite clear, without sort of exterminating the Jewish people or the Israelis. They're not leaving.
Todd, is the Abrahamic Accord based on we have this seminal piece of common ground that Abraham is the father of Christianity, Muslims, and Jews?
Yeah, I don't know that, but it seems like it would mean that. It would seem because that is the one. That's the one common ground they all go back to is Abraham. So they all can own Abraham and accept Abraham as the father of faith for these different faiths. And so it makes sense that would be what that's alluding to, but I don't know the specifics of that.
So that is a seed of hope.
Yeah.
And that the behaviors of Hamas would be somewhat mitigated or at least not controlled even, but potentially mollified by someone other than Israel.
Yeah, I think that as long as Israel is somehow, has the IDF, has the army involved, is somehow involved. Again, if you're a 5-year-old Palestinian child living in Gaza and you see an occupied army walking around all the time, you have a wall that holds you in. How are you not going to grow up believing these people are the enemy?
Totally.
Right? And so a little bit of a stat that was a bit of a surprise to me was that 70% of Gazans are 30 and under. And then the next biggest demographic is 55 and up. So this middle 30 to 50-ish is missing. And so you have a very different dynamic going on demographically than one might see. Now, of course, the big conversation is Israel committing genocide. That was a big conversation. When we met with the Natural Defense Minister, his one comment was, look, he said, we have the technology and the capability in terms of our army to wipe out Gaza in 15 minutes.
I bet.
He said, if we were Russia, we would be committing genocide. We are not Russia. We have a moral standard at which we cannot cross. He says, we understand there's lots of confusion out there and the media has run rampant. But he said that we hold ourselves within a certain moral criteria. Talking to one of the IDF soldiers who said, we will go into an area, we will drop pamphlets that say tomorrow, and I'm making this up, but something of this nature, tomorrow at 4:00, we are going to be bombing this area because we need to get to Hamas, who's underground below your buildings. Please do not be here. Please evacuate. Then Hamas, after they leave, will come to them and say, if you leave, we will shoot you.
Yeah.
So either it's certain death or you take your chances hiding in the rubble and hope that the bomb tomorrow at 4:00 doesn't kill you.
Yeah.
And so they got this huge conflict because Hamas has taken the billions of dollars that the world has given Gaza, and rather than rebuild it because it sells better to show rubble, rather than rebuild it, they took the concrete and the billions of dollars and they built tunnels. They say there's nearly 500 kilometers of tunnels that Hamas lives in and operates under, of which they know for sure 30 of them have come under the fences and have come into Israel so that they can pop up. And so when that is happening, you've got an inability to trust. There's just no trust on either side, and rightfully so. And so the way forward does not seem to be these two groups solving their problems. It's going to take a third group that they both can trust.
Right.
And the messy middle. And that could be this coalition of Egypt and Jordan and Saudi Arabia and others.
Interesting.
And again, the attack on October 7th, they've now discovered had been planned for 10 years. So this wasn't just a good idea. This was a 10-year planning with 3 waves. The first wave was the trained militants from Hamas. The second wave was those that were kind of like the extras. And then the third wave was civilians. And they were all about an hour apart. And each one of them went in with the goal. And the mandate was to shoot, kill, rape, and whoever you could kidnap, no matter what age. And so we met a number of people who were in their 70s and 80s that were being kidnapped and thrown on the back of a motorcycle in a gunny sack. And so it wasn't, the brutality is in both ways. Now we come to this conversation about supplies and food, and is Israel blockading it? Anybody that I talked to in the military while I was there said, we are not blockading this. I know the media tells you, everybody tells you, but we are not. Now, is that propaganda? I don't know. But what I do know is when I was sitting in the Foreign Affairs office and they showed a screen where, I felt like I was a little bit in a James Bond movie where in this office up came this, live video footage, not live, but video footage where they showed the UN trucks coming to UNRWA, which is the relief organization for Gaza.
Yep.
And they would then hone in on a face and one of the trucks being driven, and then they would pull the face up, give you the identity of this person, of which was a known terrorist for Hamas, and then they would show that they're on payroll of the UN. And so though Israel's written many letters to the UN, what is known and what I saw with my own eyes is the UNRWA is being managed by numbers of Hamas terrorists who are then taking the food and hiding it for Hamas officials or turn around and selling it to their people for triple the price.
Right.
So you can't take that out of the mix of you have a far right government in Israel that wants, if given their way, would wipe them all out. Mm-hmm. And you have that because of the coalition that is needed to make the government stand. So it's the furthest right government Israel has ever had. So you got that evil voice.
Oh, yeah.
And then you've got the evil voice of Hamas, which is not representative of most people other than to say they're fighting for our rights. Are they? I don't know. I think they're fighting for themselves, but they present that way. So you've got a whole bunch of good people with a few bad people or evil people leading both sides. So the messy middle is what everybody wants to live in peace. That's all they want.
Yeah.
Israel has all their children as soon as they turn 18 going to the IDF. They all have to go there. Some of the kidnapping that I saw, 5 of the women that were kidnapped, it was their second day. They were 18-year-olds.
Wow.
Just coming out of boot camp, and it was their second day on the field when they were kidnapped. 2 of them were killed. 3 of them were returned having been sexually raped for 2 years. So it's tragic, all of it. But the messy middle to me is they have a common ground and they want peace. They want to live that way. And so how do we deal with the ruling powers that are not necessarily helping move us in that direction?
Exactly. Todd, how do you come back from that and to the very tame and mundane business life of Epic?
Yeah.
I'm sure you got your exciting things at Epic, but how does one sustain the sense of meaning, purpose, making a difference in the world when you have faced something so jugular in our world?
Yeah.
What was that like for you, and how did you get back into daily life?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know many of us, myself included, as much as I've traveled around the world. I've never kind of gone into an active war zone. I mean, my flight, as many of our flights, the last leg of it was canceled going into Tel Aviv because of the war, and so we had to find a way to get in. So even to get in, we were, going against that. I remember the immigration officer looked at me, "Why are you here?" "I'm here, we're taking a tour." He says, "Now?" And I said, "Yeah." He says, "Okay," kind of looking at me like you're an idiot. And so going into an active war zone and realizing, we had 3 bomb alerts while we were there. So while we're there, we're outside the Church of the Holy Sepulchre going to go in, and all of a sudden their phones go off with an alert. Then they say, "Just a minute, we're going to wait 15 to 30 seconds. They're going to tell us whether we have to go into a shelter or whether they've intercepted the missile." We wait. Oh, they intercepted the missile. All's good. breathe again, and we can carry on. Well, this happens 3 and 4 times a day for the average Israeli. We were in Jerusalem at the time. Another day, we were in the restaurant. We were in the middle of dinner. We had our own separate room. The alerts went off. All of a sudden, the alerts after the 15, 30 seconds said, nope, got to go. So everybody got in the restaurant, wandered down the stairs under this big, huge concrete wall bunker, talking, smiling, laughing. Okay, they're just become used to this is
Right.
life.
Right.
Okay, all good. They got the missile. You can go back and have dinner. Just like, okay, this is a different way to live. And then,
Yeah.
of course, 5 days after we left, not only was it 3 alerts, it was bombs every day for hours. They were in bomb shelters for days
Yeah.
and days because we kept in touch with the people we were with,
Yeah.
and they were we're in the bomb shelter. Woke up at 3 a.m. We've been there all night and all day, and of course, this is the same in Gaza. So I'm not. It's both are
Hmm.
living in a horrible
Sure.
existence.
Sure.
And so coming back, you realize, wow, I understand now when my friends that work for us have come from Iraq or Syria or such and say, oh, it's so safe here. And I go, I don't know what you mean by that.
Yeah.
Like, sure. Yeah, we have crime, though. We have murders, too. And they go, no, you don't know what we're talking about. Your kids don't get on the bus, and when you wonder every day, are they coming home?
Right.
And I understand that in a whole new way. And so coming back, it's been the culture shock has been one. That's not the way we were meant to live. That's an awful way to live.
Yeah.
And I understand why now peace is so important to everybody there. And they're fighting over a small piece of land, and we have this huge land where we are, and you kind of go, okay, it'd be a different kind of reality because there's so much room to spread out. But it did make me realize coming home, okay, because the big question in Israel or in the Middle East is whose land is it?
Yeah.
Who was there first? Who's
Yeah.
indigenous?
Yeah.
And the Israelis will say, the Jewish people will say, we go all the way back to King David, who built the city of David 3,000 years ago, and the Palestinians have been there for maybe 1,000 years, or maybe even 1,800 years, but they've all been there for a long time. That it's
Yeah.
hard to say whose land really is it. Like it's like Canada's not even 200 years old. What happens when we're 1,000 years old? Who was the indigenous people?
Right.
Well, I think that'll be harder to pull apart.
Yeah.
But looking at our indigenous people, we go, okay, wow, we've handled that poorly. What if all the indigenous people were like the Palestinians and came together and had an army, or not an army, but a government like Hamas, and said, okay, you Europeans that came and took, we'd be living in that. So it just made me realize, wow, okay, there's some of this everywhere. It's just being handled differently. And then in the day-to-day living, it's just a realization, the conflicts I'm involved in now, I go, oh, okay, these are nothing.
Right.
Right. All of a sudden, the very anxious conflicts I face day to day are, oh, okay, we're not talking about who dies here
Right.
or war. We're talking about, oh, okay, you want that and you want a better wage. Okay,
Right.
we can deal with it at a different level of anxiety, I think. Yeah,
So,
that's
certainly for yourself, your ability to navigate in those messy middle situations and chaos and competing needs, you must be able to maneuver with a great sense of ease given the backdrop of what you just experienced. However, the people for whom you are serving, it's life or death to them, right? the
correct.
way
Yes.
the wage or the
Yes.
benefit or whatever, it feels
Yes.
like life and death.
Yeah,
Yeah.
very true. For me, I have maybe a different place to put things now. For others, their anxiety still remains as high. They still had sleepless nights going, how am I going to address this? Or how am I going to talk about
Yeah.
this? Or
Yeah.
how am I going to find my way through? So, yeah, I think it's expanded my capacity
Yeah.
for conflict, and to be able to embrace it. And I think it still offers me the option of, or the ability, if I would, to de-escalate conflict where I can, and to maybe put some perspective on it without diminishing people's desires and longings
You bet.
and what matters most to them, right?
Yeah. Todd, you've written a book that's, I've read it, I love it. It's all about the messy middle. It's all about navigating the maze.
Yeah.
Lodestar really matters when you're navigating in situations like that.
Yeah.
Can you give us a heart of the book, what it is that you wanted to bring to the world and offer? What was your contribution in this book?
Yeah. I mean, the book, for sure, just to be transparent, the book is from a Christian worldview.
Mm-hmm.
So its starting point is there's a God, and this God wants partnership with us. And so I think what it really tries to address is, I think that most of us are surprised when life goes sideways. I think we're surprised when our plan doesn't go as planned, when the things we set out as young men and women to achieve and it doesn't go the way we thought, and tragedy hits or suffering hits. And many of us get disappointed with God if we believe in a God. Many of us kind of want to say there can't be a God if what's going on in Israel and Gaza is for real. This God is terrible God. And so I'm trying to find a way to create a North Star or lodestar and help people navigate through the chaos, through the uncertainty. The name of the book is Our Beautiful Mess, and the subtitle is Finding the Way Through Chaos and Uncertainty. And I try to give a framework and a North Star for how to walk through it, not deny it, not somehow think it's our fault or something that we did, but to recognize life is a maze. It's got dead ends. It's got twists and turns that we never anticipated. And so how do we go in with a greater understanding that's I'm trying to normalize it. That's normal versus what did I do wrong, or why is my life the way it is? I have a whole chapter I dedicate to that life is unfair. My starting point is life is unfair. Now, what are we going to do about it? And how do we live in that versus trying to make it fair? As a guy in HR, I've discovered there's limitations to fairness.
Right.
As much as my goal is to make the company and our dealing with people and the business fair, I can only get it so far. And that was a big surprise to me. Oh, you can't get it as far as you'd like. Life isn't fair.
Right.
And so, that's kind of the guts of the book. The feedback so far has been really positive. It's been helping people to kind of go, okay, I see a way forward. I see a way through.
Yeah.
And that was my hope.
So for my listeners who either know people or are the kind of person who is going, Todd, you said your starting point is Christianity, and the listener who's saying that's an unfulfilling proposition for me, because what I've seen coming from that camp are simplistic answers, are binary, very black and white solutions and principles, and an ideology that potentially has been far more damaging than many other ideologies. If we think of our Indigenous population, for sure, and it goes beyond that. And so how is it that you might reconcile those concerns from those of my listeners who are listening to you going, okay, so here's somebody coming from that background, writing about the messy middle. Is there something inside this guy that might be interesting or trustworthy in that context?
Yeah, there's a theologian out of the UK. His name is N.T. Wright, and he's certainly been a big influence on me. And when asked, what is your kind of mandate? What are you trying to do? Because he's well known now in the U.S. in particular, and he's saying, I'm trying to save America from itself, from its own Christian worldview. And so there has been a worldview that Christianity has put out there that's involved, of course, some of the biggest pains that we've seen in our world, colonialism being one of them, and certainly the idea of how we've managed power. And so I've tried to take on the hard questions without giving simplistic solutions or binary solutions. I've tried to hold the messy middle in trying to wrestle with this worldview and trying to put it back on maybe its moorings, because I do think the evangelical world in America in particular, certainly creeping into Canada, it doesn't really help us deal with the difficult questions of life. It's trying to find answers rather than ask better questions. And so what I've tried to do is find better questions, and without going around the hard stuff. That's certainly been my goal, and I think those who've read it, who are in that place as you speak about, have benefited from it. It's helped them to go, okay, this is an expansive worldview. This isn't a shrinking worldview, and I think that's been part of the journey, the goal, and it certainly seems to be landing that way for people.
Mm-hmm. Todd, as we start to come to closure here, I'm hearing, and I want to find out, as I'm putting words in your mouth, so I want to find out if they're the right ones or not, that what juices you and what sustains your energy in the midst of the messy middle situations you find, whether those that you talked about in Gaza Strip or those at Epic,
Yep. Mm-hmm.
that there is actually something beautiful about the messy middle. There is a beauty that I think a lot of people would say mess, chaos, uncertainty. It is certainly not beautiful, but I think for you, you see promise, you see possibility where other people see mess, and you see energy in the messy middle. So there's something inside you, I think, that what juices you is justice. What juices you is potentially resolution, harmony, reconciliation, maybe even beauty making. But it's also, there's something that in the tension of that messy middle, for you anyway, because you can see both sides, it is not a place of incapacitating or paralyzing threat for you.
Yeah. I mean, that's an interesting, question. What juices me related to all of this messy middle, this, getting out of binary thinking, getting out of, into more of a both and thinking. It probably starts with my own childhood. I was raised in a violent home. My father was a violent alcoholic. Didn't hurt me, but hurt our mother physically, certainly hurt me emotionally and psychologically.
I bet.
But I grew up in chaos, and I kept trying to control my world to get it out of the mess. And I did everything in my power as a type A human being to get control of it all, plan my way through, think ahead, be a futurist, and you know what? I couldn't get rid of the mess. Or I could, if I did, it was for a short time. I mean, my house even a single man was spotless because I'm gonna keep the mess out.
Yeah.
But you can't. And so eventually I had to surrender to the mess and then go, how do you live in this? And I found safety in it, actually. I found God in it. That, okay, this is the reality that we live in. And now I got to live with mystery and be able to hold the tension of mystery. And that is a profound gift, I think, that I want to give to the world, because it's the journey I went on that I went, okay, this is the only way through, that makes sense and that can hold these tensions well.
Todd, I don't know if you want to go here or not, but just as we end, you came to that conclusion. You lived that way for many years. And because we're friends, I know that basically the lights got shut out for you some years ago. And from a health perspective, the unbelievable happened to you in terms of shutdown. Talk about the messy middle. Talk about uncertainty. Talk about not fair. Can you just give us a sense for how you are here today with the energy and the vibrancy that I see, and no simple solutions? Having come through, how did you get through that?
Yeah, there was definitely a time not that long ago where I couldn't save myself, if you would. I couldn't it was a mental crisis, if you would. Not having known depression, really, not having known anxiety to the level of not being able to leave my house, was something I had never known. And, I'm 61 now. And so this was in my 50s when my, I guess my closet doors that had held all the stuff in it couldn't hold it anymore. And my whole mind and body seemed to break down. I wasn't able to work. I wasn't able to function. I wasn't able to drive. I was just shrunk from a global individual who lived large and far to, can I text a friend, or maybe that's my only contact. And it was horrific. It seemed come out of nowhere. It was somewhat connected to some family stuff that had happened to one of my children that had overwhelmed me as a father who wants to protect his children. I wasn't able to in this situation, so it kind of gutted me and then sort of had me metaphorically fall down these stairs. And it was a couple of years where I couldn't function at all, and wondered if this is where I was the rest of my life. And I thought, I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to be here. I don't know how to make it with this much darkness and torment. And so I think I cried more tears in that 18 months, 2 years than I cried my entire life together, just from being overwhelmed with not being able to function, not being able to pull myself up by the bootstraps as I had most of my life. I'm a survivor. I had to survive, and I've been able to do it, and then I couldn't. And so my prayer, I suppose, every day was, please give me enough strength to make it another day. And it was that simple and that heartfelt. And that was kind of my existence. And I just continued to look for help, look for doctors, people, psychologists, psychiatrists, anybody who could give me something as a way forward. And my wife would say, your tenacity was unbelievable. You just didn't give up, even though I had no strength. And I think eventually we found the right med, took a while, found the right way forward, and we're almost 2 years now out of it where I'm like, okay, I recognize this guy. I've been this guy before. And maybe because I've known that guy, I knew there was a guy that didn't live in depression and overwhelmed by anxiety, and maybe I could find him again. But it was very, very difficult. It was probably the most overwhelming experience of my life to date. Hopefully there isn't more of those, but we don't know. And so my way through was to live in the messy middle of will I ever get out of this? Will this be the rest of my days? And that thought alone was, as a highly productive type A human being, I couldn't think of maybe some people love to lay on their couch all day. I couldn't think of a worse, scenario for me.
It feels like we never, ever want to say, oh, if you just have some suffering, you'll be a better person. Right? However, the Todd that I experience now, and I would venture that there might be other people who would say, the residue that I'm left behind with after our conversations or our interactions, it's actually more nuanced. It's reflective of something that is, again, far from simplistic, and has a sense of awe and wonder. Whereas perhaps before there might have been something a little bit more formulaic. I don't know that you detest formulas now. But I think that your life is one that you have a strong scent for where the wonder is and where the awe is. and that it really makes you a nuanced and a complex kind of something to taste. I'm not sure if other people are saying that to you or not.
I don't know if the words are such, but definitely people know I am a beauty hunter. I treasure hunt for beauty. It's one of the most moving things in life for me to see a beautiful flower, beautiful mountain, a beautiful river, beautiful fish that I've caught. Just all of that, beautiful human beings. I'm captivated by that, and I find that even I hike in the mountains quite regularly, and what I love about it, it feels like a soul shower for me to do what I do, to be able to sort of breathe out and let go of all the stuff I've heard all week and breathe in, start afresh. But so it's a soul shower, but it's also this thing of, I love being overwhelmed by how majestic the mountains are. I go, oh, I'm very little.
Right.
I love feeling little.
Yeah.
I love this feeling of being small and this awe and wonder of how vast, the mountain is, or the universe, as I, stare at the stars. And so I love being overwhelmed by that, and the wonder of it. So certainly, does that, how does it translate for people? I think people see that, the childlikeness in me, and I think they also feel I'm far more empathetic. I'm far more, be kind. Everyone's dealing with something. That's kind of a new motto for me. You know what? You can't always tell, because people would say, Todd, you look fine. And I go, if you only knew, I'm not fine.
Yeah.
I don't know how to make my face line up with that. Right. And you've always been strong in life. I'm not strong right now. Right. And so now I understand people that, I don't feel strong when I get you.
Yes.
I don't feel I can do this on my own. I get you now. People who are marginalized and, have had life where they live on the street, and you kind of go, it's their own fault. Oh, it is not their own fault. They're really expressions of a broken society, and they're really the voice of the dysfunction in all of us, rather than it's their individual behavior. And so all of a sudden you kind of have to rethink life on so many levels. But it's certainly made me a more compassionate person, and someone that still loves high pace, but recognizes that high pace isn't everything in life. Getting a lot of things done isn't the most important thing.
Yeah. The I get you that you're talking about is, I feel, and my sense of it for you is, there is an I get you, which is perspective taking, which is, oh, I can see that person's point of view, or I can imagine what it would be like to them. That's one level of I get you, and nothing the matter with that. That's entry level empathy. But there is a solidarity and a compassion out of, I have lived through, and maybe not the same situation, but something that is a very close cousin to that level of pain and uncertainty and ambiguity and mess, that a person can feel seen even if you don't open your mouth. You just are shoulder to shoulder with them, and there's that sense of solidarity and compassion. It just oozes through.
Yeah, definitely people feel seen and heard in a new way, and I see people and hear them in a whole new way. So there's that, both sides of that. And I think, one day we gather for our quarterly safety meetings. We gather our field workers. So we have about 60 field workers in one of our companies, and we gathered them that day. And I remember saying, you know what, it's time for me to tell my story, the story I told here about my mental health crisis, and said, you know what, guys, it's okay if you're struggling with it. We can help. Come forward, talk. And a number of them did. A number of them that go, you know what, in our world, it's still not a thing to tell that you got mental health struggles. It's still not a thing to accept it. It's done to deny it, ignore it, pretend it doesn't exist. But then you get into huge addictive behaviors to manage it. And so I was pleasantly surprised that those who came forward and said, I hear you, Todd. Thank you for we look to you as one of the leaders in our organization, and you're saying, hey, I know what it means to not be strong.
Yeah.
And I think that transparency is important in an organization, important for people to say, oh, okay, I'm not alone in this. I'm not by myself. I'm not the only one feeling this or experiencing this. And someone I respect and look up to is faced it too. So I think that's important part of the journey. Transparency for sure.
Journey is a good word. And it's been quite a journey for you, living in the midst of fragmentation, division. That's where we started off. What it is that sustains you, energizes you, all the things we talked about so far, but also we throw in at the end beauty and hunting for beauty. That's beautiful. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Todd, thank you so much for spending time with us. And if our listeners wanted to poke around and see what Epic was all about, where would they go? Or Lodestar.
Yeah, you got both. So the Lodestar is just Lodestar consulting.ca, and you can see both the book and the Flywheel program that's now available.
Yep.
And then I have a free resource on 20 lessons on leadership. It's a free resource for anybody who signs up for my monthly blog.
Good.
And then Epic Group is epicgroup.ca, and you get a sense of our businesses from that website.
Beautiful. Thank you, Todd, so much for being with us here today.
Great. Enjoyed our time.
Okay. All the best. Bye-bye.